Purchase your tracks today. Purchase your tracks today.
Okay, we are live Friday night, October the 11th, 2024. This is going to be mostly a catch-up stream. I was not able to make it here tonight, last night, so tonight I want to catch up so that for tomorrow's Infinite Plane Saturday, we have a clean slate. And I would like to set aside a couple of hours tomorrow for the second of the IPS Deep Think Tank group voice chats. So if you didn't get into the first one, the second one in all likelihood will be taking place tomorrow. And I'll do it right after the live stream, so we'll have a lot more to talk about. So we'll do Infinite Plane Saturday, and then after, we'll just crowd into a voice chat in Discord and record another episode. We'll give people a few minutes to show up and chat, and there's always a lot going on. It's never a slow news day. In fact, we have 3 days worth of news to parse every single 24-hour period by design. The public is meant to be drowned in misinformation so that it cannot piece together a cohesive world view. And in my research, in my debunking of the Mandela effect, I came across something called the Misinformation Effect, which has to do with how recent information interferes with memories. And people can have false memories, more or less, inserted through mass media. And I've correlated the two. I have actually said that the Mandela effect is a variant of what is now called the misinformation effect. But the Mandela affected call themselves such. We are the Mandela affected. And I'm now looking at the mainstreamers as the misinformation affected. And they're just as much a cult, and they're just as much certain that they have the right take on things. And if you don't believe them, you're a zombie, you're wrong, etc. Diana South says that chat with Armin Ree was great. Oh yes, Armin Ree joined us. And so did Reverse History. And then there was Plain Decoded in Canada, worried about the influx of non-Canadians. And I'm just, at this point, open to any topic, any conversation, so we can just determine what is MSM plus and what is MSM minus. As in, are the narratives and the ideas or the conspiracy theories that we're talking about on this side of the screen or the other side? By the way, I've been reaching out to a number of people I'd like to speak to, people I consider to be representatives of alt media, and I invited, of all people, I thought, let me just hit up Stu Peters, since he did promote me once. Well, he didn't know it was me, but he promoted the city council session where I talked about the fake space station. Anyway, he said, sure, what times and dates are you thinking? So I'm going to schedule something so you don't want to miss it, because I promised that we would have a very engaged chat. And the purpose isn't to challenge or to roast, even though he has a fundamentally different world view. Specifically, geopolitically, but also with regard to what conspiracy theories he considers to be valid. But what I want to talk about is misinformation versus, or rather, disbelief. I want to talk about disbelief, and in the age of deepfakes, why it's significantly more of a problem that people don't know what is real without being told. And so it's just become so subjective. And I thought, well, let's talk to a subject matter expert. Yeah, Rap and Stew says Psyopsicles. Yeah, I think his name was Focus, like Faux Kiss. Yeah. And nothing wrong with rappers, MAGA rappers, whatever. I'm not I'm not a fan of MAGA rap particularly. There is this theory that MAGA rapper Horatio Blow is actually Rosie O'Donnell, a deep fake. Like, is Rosie O'Donnell wearing a fake beard and a MAGA cap and rapping to troll? I don't know. If anybody has a reason to, an incentive, a motivation, it would be Rosie O'Donnell, because Trump did call her a pig on TV in 2016. So that would be the ultimate payback. Because, and I'm not clouding the guy, but he does drive around with an inflatable Trump doll. He's got a golden Trump around his neck. There are so many people who have built their entire public personas off of the Trump train and its fallout. And I've noticed there's a lot of rebranding going on because the QAnoners are gone. You can't really find Q people, but you can find people pushing the exact same narratives, but they're rebranding it. So Q, Pizzagate is kind of a new satanic panic. Well, again, that's been more or less debunked, discredited. So now they've gone to satanic ritual abuse. Same thing, older name. Penguin Doctor, good point there. Aurora Borealis blows up the day before Trump goes to a rally in Aurora, Colorado. Yeah, that's highly significant. Aurora is where we had the Joker shooter. Now, we've been talking about the overlapping fictional universe of Batman and how it pertains to Trump. The Batman Joker movies do correlate with mass media psyops and have for decades. And we've been talking about this at length. So the fact that he's going to Aurora is highly significant because the Joker shooter and because of its connections to The Dark Knight Rises. In fact, it was a screening of The Dark Knight Rising when the shooter came through the back door and shot up the theater. But if you remember, this was after the Sean Penn movie about gangsters had a trailer on the screen where mobsters came through a movie screen and shoot up a theater. And then there was some music video, I think it was Lil Wayne or something, with a theater full of skeletons, and it had Batman and Joker in it. I mean, this is thick. We've been going over this seemingly endlessly because it's there. But I came across even more. And this is from yesterday. Someone sent this to me. It's from the Amazon series called Batman Caped Crusader. So Batman Caped Crusader has an ending where Rupert Thorne, who's a Donald Trump-esque character, as we would call him, a predictive programming proxy, Rupert Thorne, and again, interestingly, Thorne, Damian Thorne, from the Omen series, is another Trump reference. But yes, Batman declares war on Rupert Thorne, and he throws a boomerang at him, clips his ear with it, as a warning that he will be back. So again, this was sent to me by Bane DeJet, says, in the last scene from Batman Caped Crusader 2024, Trump character gets an ear wound by Batman. So I checked, and it's absolutely true. And it's part of some kind of a reference or a threat that he's going to come back. But even more interestingly, Season 2 has just been picked up by Amazon, and Season 2 is going to begin, or rather, it was purchased on 8/4, which has significance to this broader theme of the Trump head wound. So let's go ahead and play this short clip. This is from a recap. Batman Caped Crusader ending explained. Okay, let's go ahead and scroll to that part. Okay, this is again just a breakdown from film Fugitives.
In Batman Caped Crusader's ending, Batman threw a batarang at Rupert Thorne, who was celebrating his grand victory over Harvey Dent. Through his gesture, the masked vigilante made it clear that he would be coming for Thorne and his men in the next season.
So he's coming back in the next season. And the next season was picked up by Amazon for 8/4. And this is Batman Caped Crusader. So we'll look into that some more. I have checked out this other series called something Agatha, some series Agatha All Along, which is a Disney Plus TV series about witchcraft. And it has this Scarlet Witch character, a Marvel character. So the Scarlet Witch, just another reference to this Scarlet Woman, Babylon archetype that we've seen projected throughout media and in every Super Bowl, it seems. Rihanna, Alicia Keys, the Red Witch theme. It's been a reoccurring theme. I think Doja Cat did something. Her album was even called Scarlet. It ties into Barbie, but the whole point of it is that it's being projected steadily. This is the goddess of the occultists that run the world, if you didn't know. All right, we're joined by Flozik, AJ206, Messianic Charlatan, Diana South, Ears Up, Penguin Doctor, Reverse History. 144,000 says good night all. Stuart McKenzie, Thomas Hughes, thanks for joining. Kay Way says the poster for the movie about Trump the Apprentice shows Trump in all gold, like the character in the Beetlejuice. Okay, let me take a look at that. Yeah, I mentioned that to a group of people today. I said, yeah, in the new Beetlejuice movie, you have Donald Trump in the Netherworld waiting room, seemingly with a hole in the side of his head. And I don't know. No one seemed to really care, but I don't know. These things are extremely interesting to us, and maybe it just makes us sound like film geeks talking about Easter eggs and that kind of thing, but this is beyond Easter eggs. And this is not connecting dots. This is not cherry picking. What we are doing here is we are examining plot devices, specifically foreshadowing. Okay, let's see. Movie poster for The Apprentice. I want to take a look at this because the character... Okay, yes. Great find. Great find. He is literally wearing a gold suit, even with gold shoes, like the ones he's selling right now. Very interesting. So if you recall in Beetlejuice, Trump is in the waiting room, and he is, well, it looks like Trump. He even has an American flag lapel pin, which to me settles it. Here's an image of him from the side. His skin is kind of bluish and like blue-green. Might partially be the lighting in the room, but the Drudge Report showed him like this, weirdly enough. So he's like a ghoul. And mind you, this came out at a time where it would already had to have been inserted. It wasn't like they could have placed it in there after July 13th as a joke. But had July 13th turned a different way, yeah, it would have been looked at, I think, as, I don't know. We'll see. I mean, these days, nothing really gets through to people. They just call it coincidence. It's like, no, these aren't coincidences. And not only are they not coincidences, these are intentionally aligned occurrences of predictive programming propaganda intended to influence an audience to be more receptive to future fake news. And fake news is fake history. They're making history right in front of us. They're acting it out like a bad reality TV show, and we all just watch. Reverse History says, great catch on the Batman Trump ear piercing. Yeah, if you go to my blog at timosman.blog, it's a separate Substack from the one where I post live stream notifications. And I went into some more detail here. So Rupert Thorne, sitting in his chair, window smashed as a batarang, it's a bat boomerang, flies in the room, slicing his ear. Now that also has some other significant connotations here. Overall, the symbol of the bat and its relationship to things like 311, but it's been a reoccurring feature in Christopher Nolan's take on Batman, where the bat is always like a phoenix. It's a burning bat. There's a bat-shaped burning hole in the building. The burning bat as phoenix. It's a reset symbol. So here's from threads.net. Rupert Thorne's bleeding ear. Rupert Thorne is attacked by Batman, who throws a boomerang and cuts his right ear as a warning he's going to return next season. And of course, it was picked up by Amazon on August 4th. So that in itself stands out to me as highly significant if you're familiar with the work of JL. And we have found much to corroborate with this. Like Trump was back in Butler 84 days. So 84 days after his ear piercing. And at 6:11, exactly 12 weeks later, they do a moment of silence, and then someone sings Ave Maria. That's the song the Riddler sings in his cell. And of course, the Riddler, the Riddler from the Batman series, looks strikingly similar to Thomas Crooks, whom the media calls an enigma. The Riddler's name is Edward Nygma. Enigma. Just one of many connections with the Batman Joker universe and real life, quote unquote. And that is my take, that fake news equals fake history, and they're making history as they go because the conquerors write history, and we have been conquered. If you've read The Art of War, yeah, they have done it. We have already been conquered. And I get some blowback from some people because I suggest that for the most part, truthers are calling, or rather crying wolf. In fact, here's another blog post, crying wolf in a crowded theater. And the reason why I'm saying crying wolf, not fire, is that not only is this like crying fire in a crowded theater, it's like intended to incite panic and could have repercussions, but more significantly, they're crying out something that's not even going to happen. Like, you don't have to be worried about wolves in the movie theater, but you have all these weather modification theories that are being promulgated by every single truther and all the top influencers there. And this is, to me, a setup. I think it's a setup. So this is a common theme, but look at what FEMA wrote, or what FEMA is saying. FEMA is not blocking people in Florida and preventing evacuations. FEMA does not control traffic flow or conduct traffic stops. These are handled by local authorities. This is a harmful rumor that can put lives in danger. So generally, this is just media hyperbole. They're afraid of every conspiracy theory, but this time they seem to have a point. Like, this is a point that I think will be accepted by normal people everywhere, which is what they want. They want Normieville to say, hey, we got to censor Trutherville because they're impacting lives in a dangerous way. And we have multiple examples of people in the right-wing griftosphere, crisis actors, capitalizing on bad weather, capitalizing on real tragedy, exaggerating it for clicks. They're making money off of it, just sitting on the sidelines, acting like the MSM, if it bleeds, it leads. But there's a common theme with the truth movement, which is a tendency to hype non-existent threats. Like weather weapons is the main thing right now. You have people saying that this is cloud seeding and condensation trails that cause this to kill off Trump voters. Like, this is the kind of insanity that's being spread out there. And I want to point out how these non-existent threats are likely being planted so non-mainstream media can self-sabotage. We saw this happen with anti-vax. So all of this weather weapon and anti-FEMA propaganda is going to be used to justify further censorship. It's a major foot bullet. So now all conspiracy theories are dangerous. That's what they're saying. Conspiracy theories are dangerous. So now the harmless conspiracy theory of chemtrails, and this is something that newbie truthers fall for quite easily, this now has a negative connotation to it. So they're not just saying, hey, these clouds are dangerous. Now they're saying they're modifying the weather. And this is, again, ignorable at one point, but now they've managed to make it into an issue. And I'm suggesting there's a correlation here, that there's a template at work. The same way anti-vaxxers were blamed for deaths, in the exact same way anti-geoengineering people are going to be blamed for stuff happening right now, which is what FEMA's saying. Lives being put in danger. There are rumors about exaggerated weather. But I think this is a template. I think it's a setup. So here's the setup as I see it. The anti-V movement, I hate even giving any oxygen to it, and I don't want to be picked up by any bots. But the antis believed in the thing, but they said it was made by a government project, like in Wuhan or something. And they feared the cure. So again, they believe in the thing, they believe in the threat, but they feared the cure. This is the template. So the anti-geoengineering people are chemtrail believers, weather weapon conspiracists, Bill Gatesophobes. They believe the climate is changing. They all believe it. They hype it, in fact. But they blame secret government projects. This happened with Maui, with Lahaina, where they said, no, it's not climate change. This is secret government weather weapons. This is space lasers. And of course, they are against geoengineering, which, if you understand the environmentalist perspective on it, geoengineering is meant to counter climate change. So, in other words, it's the cure. It's like the vax. So, by being anti geoengineering and anti vax, in both cases, they're blamed for sowing information that results in real world harm. So, the anti position accepts the premise set by the pro. And the only way outside of this control dialectic, and I've said this many times, is to take the anti-anti as well as anti-pro, which is why I don't take chemtrail nonsense seriously. And I am claiming that the people who are crying right now about weather weapons and exaggerating the devastation, they're crying wolf in a crowded theater. And I do have a comment in here, a little bit of pushback I'd like to read. This is from Lynn Ertel said, let's bodyguard the Pentagon, the DoD, and Lockheed Martin so they can maintain secrecy around classified weapons tech. Then we'll do their job for them. The important thing is to dismiss secret weapon development as paranoid conspiracy theories so they can test their advanced weapons on human lab rats and guinea pigs. They would never hurt us or deploy secret classified tech against us because they love us and would never want to hurt us. That's what Tim Osman learned during his years in the military. He learned that they never keep secrets from us and would never use us like lab animals. Just ask him. Yeah, ask me. Ask me, because what I'm suggesting is that the conspiracy theories are the secret government weapon. It's not the weather weapons. It's not what's in the pokey. It's not the 5G towers. No, the weapon is the fear. It's the mind viruses that keep you terrified so you can't sleep at night. The stuff that has you worried that there's this conspiracy to poison your air and your water and to flood your country with invaders that are going to kill you. Like, that's all mind war. And my premise here is that this whole thing is mind war. And until you can prove to me that any of these major transformative events that become a part of our history are real, organic, with true deaths, then you don't have a point. You're crying wolf in a crowded theater. And I stand by that, and I'm willing to change my opinion when I'm shown some evidence. And evidence doesn't mean showing me patents for things that don't exist or misinterpreting terms. Cloud seeding, geoengineering, and not to mention, you cannot advance any of these conspiracy theories in a coherent way. You can't say they're using weather weapons because HARP, and then you're citing satellite footage, and then you're saying that space doesn't exist or satellites aren't real. Like, at some point, we have to acknowledge that we're either dealing with an entire construct or we're dealing with the real thing. But the real thing would have evidence. So show me the bodies. I mean, is anyone here suffering from any kind of chemtrail lung, 5G headaches? Like, how are we human lab rats in any other way than the fact that we have been mentally put into a simulation? I mean, the physical world exists. It's not as dangerous as you would think if you just judged by the sim they give you. It's a simulation. All right, joined by Observing Reality says ahoy. Lean Dion has joined us. Thanks for joining. Bat soup. Never forget that fraud, says Diana South. Oh, yeah, I have a 2020 quarter, which has the bat soup on the back. And I save it just to, remember that, yes, everybody's brainwashed and brainwashable and triggerable, and they're all going to flow down predictable channels of mis, dis, and malinformation, except for us. Here's a bowl of steaming hot bat soup, hopefully not undercooked. Wouldn't want another plandemic. But yeah, this literally came out in 2020. Now it says American Samoa. It doesn't say Wuhan. Ooh, interesting. Fascinating. Observing reality may have hit something big here. Arthur Fleck. See, Joker's real name is Arthur Fleck, and if you watch the new Joker movie, a lot of people are giving it negative reviews. I kind of think it's undeserved. I kind of think that it's not Batman. It's not meant to be action. It's psychological, etc. But whatever it is chock full of predictive programming, concurrent programming. The movie was being filmed. The trial scene that culminates, the movie culminates this big trial scene with a big bomb thing. That is the courthouse where Trump was. And it was being filmed when Trump was there on 4/4/2023. Heath Ledger, another Joker, it was his 44th birthday, posthumous. But what Observing Reality says is Arthur Fleck is Nick Fuentes. AF, Groypers. Yeah, America First, AF, also has the 1-6 tied into it. And Nick Fuentes was there on January 6th calling for people to charge into the Capitol more emphatically than Ray Epstein, or Ray Epps, excuse me. Ray Epps was far tamer than Nick Fuentes, and yet Nick Fuentes is there saying, run into the Capitol, we're taking over, etc. So Nick Fuentes has been looked at by some, like Tucker, as a Fed, but I mean, kettle, pot. But there is this aspect here that's going on, because Arthur Fleck, Nick Fuentes, you might not think of them as kind of this, as similar on the face of it, except I guess in the way that, because Fuentes is very charismatic, but he is kind of a joker. He's more of a comedian than a polemicist, but he's also an incel, which means he's so that he's a voluntary celibate, but his celibacy is based on a resentment against Western women, against Western values that he believes have been corrupted from what America was meant to be. So America First is about a return to traditional values, and that's why he attached himself to MAGA. MAGA, the idea of make America great again, as in before feminism, before civil rights. That's what America First is all about. And right now, Nick Fuentes is having a major falling out with the MAGA movement. It's not going the direction he wants. They don't hate certain ethnic groups enough. And it looks like he's burning out. But if there is going to be any kind of armed action or insurrectionary activity from fringe groups that can be blamed on the internet, that can be blamed on mental illness and probably grievance mongering, it's the Groypers. So the Groypers are the frogs. The Groypers are the frog meme people, and they originate on 4chan. So that kind of gives you an idea of where he comes from, and you can't just dismiss him. He was having lunch with Donald Trump. He was Ye's campaign manager when Ye was running for office. So he's not all that marginal. So that, again, that's America First, AF, Arthur Fleck. Could there be a connection? I think so. Wouldn't shock me. Diana South says, Aurora Borealis, Northern Lights have been very visible here. Here too, I took some pictures. I have family members who were further north who got even better pictures of it. Some people have connected it to the hurricane. But I think there's some more to it, though. The Aurora thing with Trump, I'm not sure, but there's something to it. And as a rule, I happen to think it's safe to say that everything we see, script-wise, is ultimately based on astrology, or more specifically, astrotheology. And let's see here. This is an example. Tim Pool, who, again, receives $100,000 a week from Russia, from a company called Tenet. He has a live stream with 5,000 people in it, geoengineered superstorms and government weather control. So this is the opposite of Gretaism, but it accepts the premise. This is what I mean by crying wolf. So he's warning us about superstorms and geoengineering, man-caused climate change, but he doesn't believe in climate change. How do you reconcile that? Well, it's political. He blames the government because he's far-right anti-government. Greta is pro-big government, major government worshiper because she's far-left. Who does she blame for climate change? You. the free people, the consumers, the private sector, corporations, businesses. So what is it? Private sector causing these superstorms? Or is it the secret government? It depends on what side of the political aisle you take your propaganda from. And I have an axiom for this, number 47, which is in this bifurcated psi war, any psyop that has an interpretation that's solely based on your political preference is something fake that you're fighting over. The only thing that's real is the weather, whether it's climate change or geoengineering. Yeah, that's the hype they add on top of it. That's the propaganda angle. That's the simulation, the hyperstition. Osher says, "Did you see the new moon?" No, I have not. I saw the moon last night. It's like seemed kind of reddish, like an orange actually. Yeah, the pic I got, I was trying to take a photo of Sirius over the Sandia Mountains, and I was looking more northeast, and I did get a pink column. But I saw a lot more pictures from other people that were much better. And thank you, Osher. She's arrived with a toolbox. She opens it up, and inside are 10 glowing blue Wrench Lodge memberships. So you'll be handed a wrench here. G33, Conscious Reality, Hillbilly Homestead, John Cat, Salty Siren, Dynamo Hum, Rome, LBB Store, Sync Lloyd, and Psyops Matter. You're all armed and dangerously informed. And that is one of the points that I like to make here. We are informed non-believers. I have information that makes it so that I don't want to believe in certain things, such as what Greta's saying or the chemtrail pushers are saying. It's not low information rejection of reality. It's not reality denialism. It's not head in the sand. It's informed disbelief. So let me return to what Lynn had suggested about classified weapons technology, etc. The chemtrail theory has been debunked, and I introduced the information that debunked it to a lot of people who had never even brought it up to me, who suggested the thing was real. I said, have you looked at the Appleman chart from the late 50s that the Air Force used to predict conditions conducive to contrails so they could avoid flying at those times? Chemtrail believers say, no, never heard of it. So then I say, well, if condensation trails are 100% predictable and chemtrails, you cannot predict them, then your theory sucks. Your theory has to prove itself, and it can't because you don't have any observational data that suggests that there's any predictable aspects to chemtrails. It's just hit or miss. And there's not even any coherent structure to the theory. There's no agreement on what constitutes a chemtrail. Is it a chemical? Many will say, oh, it's not about that. It's about the invisible stratospheric aerosol injections. Well, if they're invisible, how can you see them? And it gets into this area of just sheer Bill Gates-ophobia and appeals to motive. So there's just no honesty there. So again, I'm just pointing out that I have plenty of reasons for not believing in chemtrails or weather weapons or climate change or geoengineering. What I do have is access to decades of predictive programming for this stuff. Like, Whitney Strieber, the guy who wrote Communion, the Alien book. Whitney Strieber and Art Bell wrote a book called The Coming Global Superstorm. And he's out there saying, I guess I didn't write my book good enough because nobody got the warning. So we have these false prophets. And if you are on Team Greta or Team Tim Pool, you're on the same team to me. If you're worried about geoengineered superstorms and cloud seeding, you're basically you're the same as Greta. It's just alarmism. And alarmism is stressful, and it may lead to psychosomatic effects. Thundernut says, you only see the northern lights looking through your phone camera. Well, they're certainly more pronounced when you have a long exposure, but I was discerning a reddish hue. I don't think it was my imagination. But it's true, you have to have the camera there with a long exposure to get it. Okay, I'm going to open up phones if anyone has anything. The main thing, or first thing I really wanted to point out today is that we have another example of concurrent slash predictive programming. A character called Rupert Thorne at the end of Batman Caped Crusader is given a warning by Batman that he's going to be back. And the warning is in the form of a boomerang thrown at his head, and it cuts his right ear, where he probably has to put a bandage on it after that. So again, this is the last scene from Batman Caped Crusader 2024. Just came out a few months ago. And a number of people on Reddit pointed this out. They said, hey, just like what happened to Trump. And this guy is very Trumpish. And there may be some other connections to this individual. Someone pointed out to me. I'm going to dig into it, but it's pretty firm here that this is a Trump proxy. And Amazon said they're picking up the next season of Caped Crusader on August 4th. Again, August 4th is the big day. So Batman Caped Crusader is an American animated television series based on DC Comics character and Batman. And you could say the same about a lot of psyops. Like the Boston bombing was an American television production based on partly the DC Comics Batman universe. You had Joker, the Boston bomber. You know, the Boston bomber got his death penalty reinstated on the day that Batman came out. Like, what are the odds? And again, the Riddler looks exactly like Thomas Crooks. And they sang the Riddler song after the moment of silence for 7/13. Lord Laney mentioned this yesterday. This is a term that I wasn't familiar with. This has to do with names. A person's name that is regarded as amusingly appropriate to their occupation.
Aptronym.
Aptronyms. So this would be world stage names. For example, I guess Dr. Carver. You know, Dr. Carver, he does autopsies. Like, these are names that definitely correlate to the person's purpose on the world stage. We have a collection of these world stage names. And they're obviously, many of the times, they're comical. Like Sam Bankman. Bankman Fried. Sounds kind of like fraud. Goldman Sachs, obviously, you know, Sachs, like you steal or you loot. We have many examples of aptonyms. I want to compile them, in fact. Anderson Cooper got hit by flying debris. I don't know if anybody saw this. Just wondering, is this CGI? So here he is. He's out there confronting the hurricane. Supposedly, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if this is in a studio.
And the water now is really starting to pour over. If you look at the graph, whoa.
Whoa. And why would they do that? Ratings. Ratings. How many people clicked just to see Anderson Cooper get hit by flying debris? 1.7 million. Fascinating. I think it's fake. I think he's a crisis actor. In fact, I saw this scene after that Haitian earthquake where he rescues a child from the earthquake. And all you see is some kid walk onto the set with fake blood on his forehead. And then Anderson puts down his mic, picks the kid up and runs around the corner. And the cameraman chases him into the back of an ambulance that was there waiting with its door open. Like, so it's not like he's not known for staging things. So yeah, I'm sorry, but I don't believe that Anderson Cooper was really hit by anything. Maybe it was foam. They throw a foam block at him in the studio. Yeah, Lean Dion, Bernie Madoff. That's another one. Okay, let's continue here. I'm going through my minds.com/Infinite Plane Society if you want to follow along or check any of my receipts. Meteorologists are getting death threats from insane hurricane conspiracy theorists. Okay, if you recall, nurses giving the jab were being threatened by anti-vaxxers. Now, whether or not you believe that's true or if it's feds or instigators, the fact of it is that's what is reported. And now we're seeing something similar, where meteorologists are now in the crosshairs of chemtrailers. This is from Futurism. People are so far gone, it makes me lose all faith in humanity. The 2024 hurricane season has been brutal, but conspiracy theorists have decided that the devastating storm season is the work of government forces. As Rolling Stone reports, they're taking their grievances out on meteorologists who they say are part of a cover-up. Per the Rolling Stone article, meteorologists are working to cover the storm season, and they've been subjected to harassment, misinformation, riddled retorts, and death threats in recent weeks, as conspiracy theories that would have stayed relegated to the fringe have garnered steam on social media. This is another example of Disease X, causing rage, causing violence. More Disease X stuff. And I have more on this. We've been talking about Disease X, the whole concept of it, and how they're building up to this idea of the rage mind virus, how this goes back to 28 Days Later, how it goes to Monkey Man, this 3/11 movie that came out. Well, the date was 3/11, the pandemic date. This reoccurring theme, which we've attached to the WHO's declaring of a monkeypox pandemic on the day that Apple Plus released Bad Monkey. So there's this reoccurring theme. 90-foot monkey god statue erected on that day in Houston, or it's revealed. And then there's 1 million people playing a simulation as the Monkey King, monkey god, in a video game at that same time. So we've talked about this building up. And Planet of the Apes, King Kong, this reoccurring archetype, the rage virus thing. So here we are, seeing it in action. So it goes on to say, I've been doing this for 46 years. This is from James Spann, meteorologist, said he's been inundated with eerie messages telling him to stop lying about how the government controls the weather. So this is kind of like Extinction Rebellion or environmentalists getting crazy. This would be like environmentalists committing acts of eco-terrorism, but now it's the other side of the political aisle. And they both want to stop the bad people from triggering bad weather, causing bad weather. That's what they're doing. So when environmentalists shut down traffic or try to stop planes from taking off, what they're doing is they're trying to save the planet. So what are truthers doing when they're calling the weatherman and making threats? They're trying to save the planet. Now, I predicted this would be in here because I haven't read this article yet. This harassment coincides with the proliferation and normalization of conspiracy theorizing on Musk's X, where a worsening flood of misinformation pushed by influencers, like influenza, mind flu, including Musk, have been thriving in the wake of hurricanes Helene and Milton. Says it's picked up steam because of Marjorie Taylor Greene. I'm glad I'm not in agreement with MTG and Tim Pool. If you're saying that I am not speaking the truth because I'm denying chemtrails, well then you're kind of on team MTG and Tim Pool. And we know where Tim's paid from. MTG, I don't want to know. I mean, she's a swamp creature. I don't want to be in agreement with these two. But she's out there saying pretty emphatically that they can control the weather. And she even doubled down on it. Oh, interesting. Grant Cardone. Isn't he a Scientologist? He's one of these, he calls his program 10X. He's like a salesman guy. He teaches you how to sell stuff online. Grant Cardone is one of them. Fascinating. Okay, so I'm just pointing this out here, that misinformation, mind viruses causing violent reactions. That's Disease X, and we can expect more of it. And being a chemtrailer at some point is going to be attached to this. That's why I say the only rational position to take today is inactivism. I'm not an activist. I'm not an anti. If you're an anti, you're an activist. NDB says disaster porn. Yeah, pretty much. Lord Laney says, I looked it up after a guy named Branch robbed somebody with a branch. Metascriptors are funny. Oh, yeah, the guy named Branch was at I saw that story. It was the guy Branch at a Chick-fil-A. So there was a man with a branch attempting a carjacking. Hit his Chick-fil-A employee, stops a man from doing a carjacking. And I dug into the story here, and it says here the name is William Branch. Suspect was a 43-year-old man, William Branch, charged with carjacking and battery. But yes, Branch took a branch and tried to steal a car. That's some kind of joke. And who would ever even think to do that? Likely a PR stunt by Chick-fil-A. Okay, we're going to talk more about this disease X and how it's developing here soon, because there's a lot more to it, but we'll follow this as it goes. It's an ongoing story. But I did come across something else. It's this new Stephen King movie, and I think I have a liked tweet that references this. So there's a new Stephen King movie with a monkey on the cover, and it turns out it has some connection to Jordan Peele. And I'll see if I can find that. A lot of these conspiracy theorists that say that Alex Jones is Bill Hicks, they're at it again. And some new pictures have emerged that have really given me pause as to whether or not I should spend some more time on this one. Because I kind of ignored it for some time. Like, who really cares? But more pictures have popped up that lend credence to the idea that Alex Jones is a character played by somebody who is formerly known as comedian Bill Hicks. It's old news. It's not new to anybody here, but some of these new pictures are quite compelling. Just a heads up. This was posted by Juanita Broderick. So Juanita Broderick, her claim to fame, she claims she was abused by Bill Clinton. And she shared this picture today. This picture, and thanks to the tweet, Humberto Strom, he sent this to me. This picture is an image drawn by Jimi Hendrix when he was 12, after he went to an Elvis concert. So Jimi Hendrix goes to Elvis at 12, goes home, and he draws the most Trump-looking Elvis I've ever seen. So yes, this Trump Elvis is a Jimi Hendrix drawing shared by Bill Clinton accuser Juanita Broderick. What do you make of this? And I listened to this podcast that someone recommended. It was Sam Tripoli. Sam Tripoli had Ollie Demigard on to talk about the fake Trump shooting. And Ollie Demigard hinted that on the 13th of this month, he's dropping some documentary about how Elvis is alive. So it's going to get kind of interesting. This Elvis thing is, it's fascinating. It is a fascinating aspect to the simulation that we're in. This character. The movie Megalopolis, which we've been discussing quite a lot lately, has this bizarre scene where they're celebrating Saturnalia because it's America as Rome, make Rome great again. And you have Elvis singing the song America the Beautiful, the one that was performed at Trump's inauguration in 2017 by the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. So Elvis is wrapped in a flag, an old Elvis, singing Trump's inauguration song on Saturnalia in Megalopolis. I mean, make sense of that if you can, but it was after the scene where the Trump-esque character, Caesar, sustains a head wound in his right eye and then miraculously heals and then presents his miraculous vision to the world for a one world order with a pledge of allegiance to humanity. Smarty Pants says Grant Cardone, vomit face emoji. Right? Portal Complex says Morgan Freeman was a fantastic artist. Truth Hurts 21 says, what if they imprisoned Trump, Musk, and Jones after a contested election? Well, there have been a lot of people calling for it, for the arrest of Elon Musk. I believe that he's been threatened a number of times, the EU, so it's not like there's not a will for that to happen. Good morning, Marcel Ploger from the Netherlands. Thank you for joining. Here's an interesting tidbit. This girl claims that she was recruited from Mar-a-Lago by Trump to go work at Epstein Island.
I was recruited at a very young age from Mar-a-Lago and entrapped in a world that I didn't understand, and I've been fighting that very world to this day, and I won't stop fighting. I will never be silenced until these people are brought to justice.
There you have it. Fascinating. I believe that one. Why shouldn't I? If we're just going to believe all the other ones, right? What's our standard of evidence? I happen to think that SRA, satanic ritual abuse, is a hoax. You know, I've been getting some flack from the SRA people who claim they've been abused by these celebrities and presidents and politicians, and they share their stories, and they're graphic and crazy. So I go and I'm like, you know, you're making this stuff up and you're creating content that's just abusive, and you're kind of creating very bad content. And then they accuse me of being a Satanist. And it's like, I don't think Satanists are abusing anybody. Like, I really can't find any examples of this. If you're looking for systemic, almost ritualized abuse, you're better off looking at Catholics, Mormons, Boy Scouts, public schools. Like, you're going to find it in these already established institutions that are in power. You're not going to find it by chasing after some shadowy, non-existent group called the Satanic Cabal. I don't believe there is one, because the more I study this, the more I see that the capstone level mind control operatives, the top tier of this system, the ones who are operating the world stage sim, they practice something that is more akin to sun worship and a more expanded form of Christianity than any kind of Satanism. It's really not that simple as Satan versus or good versus evil, like Satan and Jesus are antagonists, but rather they seem to have both of these in their pantheistic view. My Third Eye says Epstein was a fictional character. He had no victims. See, I'm in camp Epstein is fake. Like, I don't think it's real. Lean Dion says Elon said on Tucker that he'll be arrested if Trump loses. Right. I heard that. Now, this is a post on Facebook that I thought was interesting. It just sort of came out of nowhere. So I think it was just shared with and I rarely go to Facebook, but this is interesting. So Mark Knight claims that David Weiss and his flat earth crew have created a crypto scam called Dome, a Ponzi scheme to get people to promote a paid app MLM style via tokens. But 65% of the tokens remain under creators' control and now are being sold. They have no inherent value or utility, and it's on Pulse X blockchain, which, according to Mark Knight, has zero respect in the industry. And he goes on to say that PLX is 85% down since creation, and Dome is already trading, and one can see $750 in tokens bought yesterday are at half volume. This is insane. What he's saying here, long and short of it, is that this is a Ponzi scheme, and they're skimming off the top. And he says, everyone stop being donuts. Stop buying this trash. Okay, so that's somebody being hypercritical of somebody promoting an app with an MLM-style Ponzi scheme token. Okay, well, he has a response from Harry Sheet. And Harry Sheet says, David wouldn't do that. He has so much money, he would never need to do that. If you knew him, you would know that. To which Mark says, Harry Sheet, bro, I know tokenomics. It's a Ponzi scheme. So a little side drama, but I'm just letting anyone know that if you're buying the Dome thing, you might want to consult some industry experts. And Hori Sheet, you may or may not know him. I think he was a Flat Earth Conference speaker. I stopped watching his videos when he got weird and started teaching children how to make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and he looked like a crackhead. And I'm like, okay, that's just too weird. And he was a staunch defender of a child predator on parole. He was featured in Behind the Perv for it. These are just facts. King Ravana says Epstein fake. What about Weinstein? Interesting. Yeah, that's a good question. Where do we draw the line? Because we can't limit our assessment of psyops to merely shootings and terror attacks. They have to encompass these things with all of the characters that populate the world stage. And one of the things I mentioned about the Joker 2 is the tagline, all the world's a stage. So all the world's a stage is a dead giveaway here. So the world stage simulation has a very selective view. It has there is a monopoly. It's a worldview monopoly. So if you're seeing somebody on there promoted, popularized, in your face, you can't help but hear from everybody in your social circle this person's whatever they've just done. If it saturates your world, then it's meant to. Like last year, I became aware of someone called Taylor Swift. Like you couldn't avoid it. And right now, everybody's talking about Diddy. Well, do we know if he even did it? I wasn't closed-minded to it. I did see a video of him kicking a woman in a hotel. But again, I have to be super skeptical about these things. And someone points out he's in a movie called Monsters Ball in jail. And there may be some connections here. So if anything happens in the real world that is preceded by media foreshadowing, it's likely fake. I think that's a safe assumption. People will say it's a coincidence. Life follows art. No, life doesn't imitate art like that. It's more like psyops imitate art. And then they intend for our lives to follow the psyops. So these events that imitate the art are engineered to do so because it's part of a continuous and even contiguous set of narratives that cross all kinds of borders. Like there is no meaningful distinction between Hollywood and the news. It's the same thing. And I had a quote from him, Bill Maher, who's also very creepy towards kids. If you've seen any of his videos, I mean, he's a groomer, in my opinion. Bill Maher said, if you want to know what's going to happen in the future, watch the movies from 20 years ago. I would just say watch Netflix today to see what's going to happen tomorrow. Okay, speaking of all the world's a stage, here is Joe Biggs, info warrior, who supposedly spent time in prison for January 6th. But here he is outside of the Capitol. And just listen how brazen they were on this day when they thought, or when they were, I don't know if they were duped. Because you get the impression that these individuals are all in, so they have to be backstabbers. But here they are, more or less, making it look like this was an attempt at an insurrection. It wasn't a peaceful protest.
So we just stormed the fucking Capitol, took
did.
the motherfucking place back. That was so much fun.
So much America. So much America.
We just stormed the Capitol, so much America, so much fun. Okay. I love how they just record it too. Donald Trump is very slick. He's like, when he says things, it's never this direct. He has some level of plausible deniability. And these individuals just take that away. I got a comment from Grim Reefer. I'm just going to read it really quick here. He says, the problem with the Mandela effect can be debunked all you want, but there is a conspiracy to push the effect. You can debunk Mandela dying twice. You can debunk Shazam. Whatever the F it is. I had the VHS and it changed. You can call it human error, but that's just lazy. It's something supernatural. I agree that it's intentional. I do agree that there is something called the misinformation effect, which results in our false worldview. And the Mandela effect is just a subset of that. We are all misinformation affected until you've managed to separate misinformation from what can be reality tested. But no, I stand by my debunking of the Mandela effect. It is 100% the result of retroactive interference, interrogator bias. It is the misinformation effect. Now, is it organic? No. It is the most popular conspiracy theory on the planet. Honestly, the Mandela effect is so popular. The idea that some people claim that it's like counterculture or it's waking people up. No, this is mind junk. They threw it in there to destroy your cognition because you're probably if you fell for the Mandela effect, it means that you were looking critically at media and you arrived at some erroneous conclusions. So they take the critical thinkers and they misdirect them. And I understand how they get there, but you have to, pull yourself out of that ditch already. If you're still down in the well with Timmy, it's time to climb out. And that's one of the major debunks. Everybody knows Timmy fell down the well. How did they get him out? A rope? You don't have that answer because it's not a complete memory. It's a meme. Okay, Conscious Reality CD says Diddy was in the movie Get Him to the Greek with Russell Brand. Diddy's role is cringe, like what's going on now. Yeah, Russell Brand is really hyping up his Christianity. I don't buy it. He's got a 33 tattooed on his arm. That's a little more eclectic. He did baptize himself, and he has all these other. It's just like a group of man buns in diapers baptizing people in looks like dirty water. Good for them. I wouldn't want to be downstream. Messianic Charlatan says, I hate all the numerous rock star biographies I've read in my pre-Nipsey existence. All of them were revealed to be fraud, multiple rollers. Yes. Yes, the mind war encompasses movies, books, novels. Music is huge. Music is one of the main sources of predictive programming messaging. My Third Eye says the main difference is the news is faker than Hollywood. It really is. Compare the ISS to the latest science fiction on Netflix. Why is the science fiction movie better than the real thing? It's inverted. Smarty Pants says it's a small world at the top of the Illuminati dung heap is what I say. It's definitely a small world up there. And not only that, but when we separate humanity in these broad categories, so you have the programmed, which is everybody. Everybody's programmed. That is your entrance into this place. It's inescapable unless you're raised by wolves. But beyond that, like how would you even have, unless you're born into the programming class. But even there, I would see programming as part of the process, and that the deprogrammed don't really exist as a group, but rather the selectively deprogrammed can become programmers. So you're let in on this is how we fake this aspect, or this is, so let's just say you're part of FEMA and you're orchestrating hyper-realistic terror attack drills. And then one day you're part of an operation where you collude with government-controlled media and you present it as the real thing. Okay, well, you've been selectively deprogrammed, but you probably still believe in radical Islamic terrorism, nukes. You probably still believe most of what is out there. So it's a selective deprogramming, and it's highly compartmentalized. I don't think they're going to let everybody in on all the big secrets. They wouldn't want people connecting all these dots. So the programmed and the deprogrammed are really, or I guess you could say it's the programmers and the programmed, but even among those who are completely indoctrinated, they become reinforcers. The deprogrammed would be those who have stepped outside of the MSM worldview itself and recognize it as a model. And no one has that perspective outside of media skeptics, auto hoaxers. It's it's actually that small of a group. Because if you're part of the programming class, I don't think you're necessarily, and this is just because it's like security clearances, you're not necessarily going to be told about everything. You hear these refutations. There's no way they could have faked the moon landing because there were 400,000 contractors involved. Well, what makes you think all 400,000 would have to know about what happens at the very top? And you can find quotes by the director of Apollo 11, the flight director, the mission director, who said that their simulations were so good in the late 60s that from mission control's perspective, they wouldn't know the difference. Portal Complex says the newsbender's budget is infinite. Yes, it is. In fact, like NASA's budget is more or less infinite. And where is that money going? Because they're not spending it on good special effects. They're not hiring the best. They didn't hire Christopher Nolan. So where's that money going? I happen to think that NASA, the budget, is not merely involved in space fakery, but it's more of a slush fund for fakery in general. It all goes to the PSYOP entertainment complex because the space program's primary objective and its mission accomplished is establishing the world view the consensus accepts. This was the blue marble in 1972 when we saw the face of Gaia. That set the stage. That kicked off the modern era of environmentalism. But that was it. That was when our worldview was set in stone. This is the finite ball we live on, dangling precariously in space, and we're killing it. We're like termites. Smarty Pants says, who's at the top? The master programmer, the deprogrammed? Good question. And I would say that every attempt to figure it out results in people chasing red herrings and not knowing the difference between real and fake. You know, people will say, I think this group does it, and this group also did that. It's like, well, this group that you're attributing all these bad things to, a lot of these bad things aren't even real. So, you know, we have to watch out for MSM plus, which is what I would refer to as conspiracy theories that accept too much at face value and then add on stuff to make it make sense. But who's at the top? Now, here's what's interesting to me, though, is that the deprogrammed would have more flexibility, no compartments. In other words, it's open source for us. We don't have to sign any NDAs or take any blood oaths to get into the club to find out what they know. And it is knowers that rule over believers. The masses are divided into competing belief systems. You have for example, the weather weapon believers. You know, they have an entire paradigm, but they don't know for sure. All they can do is retweet about it and add conjecture, but they don't know. The same thing with the other side. They only know what the climate models tell them. But when you get into who does know, it's the people who write the scripts, the people who are involved at a deep level at the script writing. So, for example, someone like Francis Ford Coppola, Megalopolis, that movie, its production, its connections to 9/11, and its other connections, his other films, to the present era with Trump, would suggest that, yeah, he's a metascripter. He's in the know. James Cameron knows 9/11 was a movie, for example. Stanley Kubrick knew 9/11. If he was alive, I wouldn't be surprised, but supposedly he died in 99. I think he retired from the public to focus on his magnum opus, which was 9/11. But even these individuals who are let out, or let in on, rather, certain aspects of the big world stage sim, I don't imagine them as having too much freedom to talk about it, to think about it, to collaborate and think tank with others about it or figure it out. Like, they would be highly compartmentalized and insulated. So who's at the top? I would suggest that we're trying to compete. I would like to have the number of deprogrammed to outnumber top tier programmers. That's why I'm saying 10,000. Let's get 10,000 fully enlightened auto hoaxers. Infinite Plane Radio. If you want to call right back, it looks like a call got dropped here. Yeah, the Penguinati, exactly. Again, phones are open, 505-510-4226. I certainly don't believe that you can, from within the box, tell who's in control of it. Anybody who's still in the box has no clue who's in control. You'd have to be outside of it to know. Infinite Plane Radio.
Dude, I'm not going to take up too much of your time. This is Jurassic.
Hey, what's up, Jurassic? Hey, did you catch that thing that I pointed out from the Batman Caped Crusader final episode where the Trump character Rupert Thorne has his ear clipped by Batman's boomerang as a warning?
Well, I mean, I heard you talk about, it, but I couldn't see the image or anything. Did you show an image?
Yeah, I'm going to put it back on the screen. And then, furthermore, Amazon picked up the next season on August 4th. They had a press release. August 4th, Amazon's picking up the new season of Caped Crusader. But yes, here you have Batman's war on Rupert Thorne, where he throws the boomerang and cuts his ear. And there's a blood streak on his ear. I'll zoom in on it. You can see it.
And by the way, I want to talk about that picture because I've showed that before, that Trump picture that you showed earlier.
Okay,
Me,
the one where he was all in gold.
no. The Jimi Hendrix thing.
Oh, the Jimi Hendrix one. Yeah, that was just posted. Jimi Hendrix at 12 went and saw Elvis, and then he draws Elvis, and he looks like Trump.
I've shown that many times over the years. Yeah, I'll get to what's important about that. So where's the image? I'm looking. Is this it right here? Is this a?
Yeah. This is it. This is Rupert Thorne, and on his right ear, it's got a little slash on it. And they said this is like a warning shot, basically. This is a warning shot.
Wow. Okay, cool. Yeah, I see it. And that's a cartoon?
It's a cartoon series, Cape Crusader it's on Amazon, and it just ended.
Yeah, and the CC. Yeah, Cape Crusader, yeah. The image with Trump, put it back up. Let me show you and zoom in. The cartoon picture of Trump.
Yes, I'll pull it up right now.
The Jimi Hendrix. Zoom in on it, and that way you can.
Okay.
I want you to. How come I can't? I'm waiting to see it on my screen here.
Yeah, there's like a probably a small delay, but yeah, I'm zooming in. He has all kinds of like writing on it as well. It's not a bad drawing.
Zoom in on the part where it has the line going across from his chin to the guitar strap. Like zoom across it.
Okay, I see it.
This is what I used to show everybody because what it is just a bunch of Elvis songs everywhere around him.
Yeah.
And do you know what it says right there? R.I.P.
Rip.
Rest in peace.
Oh, okay. Yep. Yeah. I see that. Rip.
Yep. And it says up. Rip it up. Up is, like resurrect. R.I.P. and then up.
Yes. I see that.
And it's got a cross. And it's a cross, you see?
It's a crucifix. It's definitely a cross there.
Yeah. R.I.P. and then cross. It's a resurrection. And the word up is the backwards of the word EL, but forget about that. It's EL equals the same, but as up but backwards.
I see. It's a cipher, so that's a EL cipher. And and you had something else as well. And then after that, I want to bring up Lisa Marie Presley keeping her son Ben in a room at 55 degrees for 2 months, dead.
Yeah, that's insane. That's absolutely. But man, wait till you see. I have a big death prediction coming up. But I can't tell you right now. But there was a death that happened today. The news came out today. I don't know if you saw my video. It was about some unknown, Cuban singer. It's complete ritual for Trump's head wound. Absolutely, 100%.
Cool. I look forward to seeing it.
Yeah.
I mean,
you got to watch it, man.
I mean, you called it like a month ago. You said that when Trump goes back to Butler, there's something with Rocket Man, and then Elon shows up. Nobody knew that. So people need to listen to what you're saying as far as your reasoning here is based on what we're doing. We're examining media critically, but we're showing how it's so orchestrated. How could you have known that if it wasn't perfectly orchestrated that way?
And by the way, there was a guy known as Rocket Man, some soccer player died. I don't know if you want to look that up.
Oh, I'll take a look.
I'm not sure. I'm not the one who found that. Just recently.
Yeah, I'll see if I can find it. But anyway, I'll dig for that one. But this Batman thing, just the latest thing, and again, it connects to 8/4. August 4th is when they picked up the season 2, ending in a threat where his ear is clipped. So I'm thinking there's got to be that's yet another Batman Joker connection to this Trump thing. And the name Rupert Thorne just immediately had me think of Damian Thorne, DT, who is also a predictive programming proxy for Donald Trump.
Yeah, and the Batman building is in Tennessee, right? You know that, right?
The Batman building in Tennessee. I didn't know.
Yeah,
I didn't know that. Is that the one that
yeah,
has
yeah.
the? Let me bring that one up.
And then what's important about that, you know how I always tell you about the ATT code, the ATA? It's the AT&T building. That's what makes it important. And
Okay. It has 33 floors.
Yep.
It's at
And it's
333
located.
Commerce Street.
Right. Yep.
And the ATT code, yes, we've heard this. This is actually interesting in itself. The whole Muhammad Atta attacks, Muhammad attacks 9/11,
Right.
Seattle C
Right,
attack.
right.
Yeah, it's definitely built into that. Fascinating code
And
here.
it's in Tennessee because Elvis lived and died in Tennessee. So that's why it's important. The Batman connection.
And speaking of Batman connections, I think Trump was in Aurora today. And what's crazy about this is that we had the Aurora Borealis visible everywhere. I was looking at it last night. So Trump, Aurora marked by nativist attacks. Fascinating. Okay, I heard some of the rhetoric here, and this is all building towards something. But yes, this is Aurora, where they claim the Hells Angels were going to stop the Venezuelan gang members. But this is where the Joker shooter was, James Holmes.
Yeah. Anyway, just real quick, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna waste any more of your time, but just this Cuban singer, just real quick, let me give you the quick synopsis of it. He's some kind of reggaeton singer. He's got over 1 million Instagram viewers. Like I said, I've never heard of the dude, but his name is super important. Okay, and what happened to him? He got his head wound on 10/4. And he didn't die till yesterday, okay? So there's all kinds of connections with the 8/4 and the head wound and all that stuff, but you got to watch my videos to understand. But look at his name. You can't believe it. It's El, which means God, right, in Hebrew. And it's like Elvis, but El, and then, his stage name is Taiger.
I'm seeing that here. I'm seeing that here. El Tiger. Okay.
Yeah, and Elvis is the Tiger Man, but look at that. They added that the extra A in his last name, Tai. So it'd be El Tiger. But you know what the anagram is for that? Someone in my chat told me it's Great Lie.
I see that. Dead at 37, which is also an ambigram. It's like you could put.
For the EL. It's the EL connection because 37 looks like the letters EL.
So 10/4 is another 8/4 kind of date.
Yeah.
And then his real initials are JCV. I'm trying to look at it. I'm trying to find more information about it. Yeah, okay. It does say head wound.
Oh, there's a ton of information connecting it, man. You just got to look at my video. It's all connected to August 4th. His birthday is connected to, it's 84, 85 days from Trump's birthday. Everything's connected.
All right, I see that here. I'll continue to follow it this story here, and also if you want to post a link to your channel, because this is obviously another one of these predictive programming things that.
Anyway, it was my last video. It's my last live stream, so you can watch that if you guys want. I'm not sure how long I'll leave that video up, but it's pretty good. Just be patient and watch through it all. But anyway, bro, take care, and I'll be going live if anyone wants to know in the next half hour or so.
Okay, yeah, post a link to your channel. Appreciate the call.
I don't know how to do that.
I'll have someone else do it.
All right, thanks. Bye.
Yeah, we got it covered. So yeah, Trump announces Operation Aurora to target illegal immigrant gang members in Colorado. Why don't you deal with the gang members that are already there? Because the Venezuelan gang members are a hoax. But Operation Aurora, the timing of it with all the Joker shooting stuff, this is another example again, because Aurora, Dark Knight Rises, the fact that he's going there after what we had last night in the skies, I'm kind of thinking here, well, let's see. How long ago was this predicted? More predicted tonight. Okay, this is all just, to me, it's astrotheology. At some point, everything's written in the stars, but this is coordinated and timed, as all movie releases are. Mazel missed his appearance. Yeah, I probably would have gone. All right, let's move on. Here again, if you haven't seen it, Rupert Thorne attacked by Batman, clips his ear, and I zoomed in close, and there is blood on his ear. Okay, here's the other thing I was looking for with the monkey virus thing. Stephen King's got a movie coming out called The Monkey. Stephen King and Osgood Perkins. And what Crypto K pointed out is that Osgood Perkins had a role in Nope, Jordan Peele's Nope. Jordan Peele's Nope was inspired by the George Floyd spectacle. So there's a mind virus thing. You see this atrocity and you burn down a city. The rage kicked off by a unit of information, a meme, a graphic, a video clip. This is the reoccurring theme here. So here, and you know that monkey eye kind of looks like a camera lens, but so this monkey movie, The Monkey, everybody dies and that's effed up. Stephen King, Metascriptor, Shining, Dr. Sleep, follow up to The Shining, has a psychic predicting 9/11. The Stand had a remake in 2020, was about 2020 for the most part. But it's directed by Osgood Perkins, and it's being released on Jordan Peele's 46th birthday. So just kind of a connection here by Crypto K that Jordan Peele's birthday and The Monkey connect with Nope. And I'm mostly looking at this specific meme that's been pushed out there. So the angry ape, the monkey, this is, again, foreshadowing for the coming rage virus. And the author of 28 Days Later directed Civil War. And the movie Civil War, it's about the media reporting on a civil war, but it also shows the attitude of the right wing toward media, where because they're catching mind viruses, they are going on killing sprees. They're killing the other side. It's all based on media triggering people. The James Holmes thing was where the Joker shooter again had the orange hair. And we were talking about the significance of these various Joker archetypes that pop out right now. You know, Joker 2, of course, Thomas Crooks, like the Riddler, those connections. And then Ryan Routh had the yellow blue hair, which makes green, and he laughed like the Joker when he was in court. But we were noting all these connections with the Batman Joker universe and the Trump thing. And yet again, Batman Caped Crusader ending. Play this short clip again from film Fugitives.
Thorne was celebrating his grand. The four of them were up against an endless tide. Those were terrible odds, but Bruce Wayne was ready to take them. In Batman Caped Crusader's ending, Batman threw a batarang at Rupert Thorne, who was celebrating his grand victory over Harvey Dent. Through his gesture, the masked vigilante made it clear that he would be coming for Thorne and his men in the next season.
So making it clear he's going to come back for him in the next season, which could refer to during his next term, possibly. Tim, I forgot to mention, Jimi Hendrix was born in Seattle, Washington. Okay, good connection there. Here's a short clip. This is about a game invented by Russian students, or some Russian student, and it reveals how the elite manipulate the masses. So it's a game called Werewolf, where everyone gets a piece of paper, and it either has a villager or a wolf on it, a werewolf. And someone runs the game to make sure nobody cheats. Everyone closes their eyes, and the werewolves point out who they want to eat that night. And then they open their eyes, and the villagers who are dead are no longer playing. And so everyone's trying to figure out who the werewolves are. And what they find out here is that in these games, the werewolves are consistently able to kill off all the villagers. And this is only made possible, and he's demonstrating in this short clip here, by the fact that they have a great deal more information. So there's the knowledge disparity that gives the few the power over the many. Let me play this clip.
They kill. And they say, well, we're going to kill Constantine. It's revealed by the person running the game, I'm afraid Constantine was a villager. And the game continues. The villagers win the game if they kill both werewolves. The werewolves win the game if they kill all but 2 villagers. And the werewolves usually win. The game was invented by a student of sociology in Russia who wanted to prove his thesis that an uninformed majority will always lose a battle of information against an informed minority.
So that was the point.
So that just shows.
This is the main point of the whole thing. The uninformed majority will always lose against an informed minority. Interesting point there. Dirk says, oh, okay. You're born in Seattle and you've been to his gravesite. I read somewhere that Jim Morrison had a closed casket, completely sealed. Nobody saw him. Like, I think there's something to the 27 Club. I think there's something to a lot of this death fakery. And Jim Morrison's father is obviously very interesting with the Gulf of Tonkin connection. All these PSYOP connections. All right, let's move on. I was reading The Dark Path by Isaac Weishaupt. And he adds some things here. I had to find this video. Lil Wayne and Big Sean's video for My Homies has a movie theater full of skeletons with images of Batman and Joker. And then here's what Dark Path wrote. He says, the term aurora represents the dawn or morning star. This is analogous to Lucifer or Venus, 2 components of the pagan or occult agenda. We saw the term aurora inside the actual Batman Dark Knight Rises film. It's on a building as the camera pans the city. So within the movie itself, it makes a reference to Aurora. And this is, again, Dark Knight Rises. And the opening night had the scene where gangsters come out of the screen and shoot a bunch of people on a trailer. And then it happens for real as the movie kicks off. And when I say real, I mean fake. But again, the interconnectedness between the Batman Joker universe and PSYOPs goes back at least 10 or 15 years. Actually goes back way further, but with this Dark Knight Rises is where you can really see it overlapping. And I think there's some prediction in there for 2025. I think Dark Knight Rises has a prediction for the Mushroom Cloud in 2025. Mr. Riosa says, YouTube will not let me watch your shows. I get a minute or two, then it goes off. Only your channel. You have a few options. I'll share them with you. Go to ips.monster. You can listen on Odyssey, YouTube, Radio King, DLive, no longer on Rumble for a lot of reasons. Their ads are terrible. And then you can listen live at Twitter on the account called IPS Think Tank. So if you're having issues with YouTube, it's probably intentional. I wouldn't be surprised sometimes. I mean, I only have this issue with some people where it seems like my emails are being delayed. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if there's some kind of, I don't know. I don't want to be paranoid here. And I'm not being paranoid, like we are essentially an alien ant farm for all intents and purposes. They can read our minds. Okay, moving on. I've been following Japanese Flat Earth on Twitter, and one channel called something Astronaut found this clip of the so-called astronauts. I think this is cosplay. And they're just monkeying around. This guy's hanging upside down, and he's demonstrating that the shadows are at the wrong angle for the one who's upside down. That they're not at the right angle. They're not parallel. So what explains this? It's possible they're not even in the same room and that he exists on a different layer. So again, if you're looking at the screen, you're looking at an upside down astronaut who's at a slight angle, and his shadows are inconsistent with her shadows. And this is Peg, I think it's Peg Whitson. You may be familiar. She was the captain of the ISS for a long time. I mean, she was like one of the top astronauts on there. I think she was in command of the ISS, and she broke a record. Anyone care to guess how many days did Peggy Whitson spend in orbit? Generally, when I have a pop quiz like that, the answer is 33, but this is a rare occasion where you're going to have to guess. How many days was Peg Whitson in orbit? Dirk says, yes, Grant Cardone is a Scientologist. Hey, and there's no problem with that, in my view. If you're a Scientologist or a NASAtologist, you're both part of kooky space religions. The only question is, which one is scammier? And, you know, at least you don't have to pay Scientology. But you are a taxpayer. You're funding Mind Control Central, Worldview Warfare Control Central. That's what NASA's for. They have better special effects, granted, although I would argue that Scientology has better actors. But, yeah, she broke the record at the age of 57 for the most time accumulated in orbit, and that is 666 days. Let's see who got that right. R. Cook, yeah, it was 666. She was orbiting the globe, orbiting their Lord Ball for 666 days. Just a coincidence. Here's a clip, one of my favorite ones. This is where a cosmonaut is giving a tour of their bathroom facilities, and he drops a screw on the floor.
Hetzelfde toilet als bij de Russen, maar interessante systemen. Hier achter deze panelen wordt de urine opgevangen en
oh, kind of like on Earth Day, they brought out an inflatable globe and they dropped it, and they all reached for it, and they couldn't go down because they have harnesses on their back, or they're attached to a seesaw. So it's kind of like you walk by dogs on leashes, and they kind of come after you, and they have to stop. They all had that same effect. They were trying to grab the globe before it hit the floor, because obviously that can't happen in space. And you could see it in their faces. They all knew they screwed up. But anyway, this is a cosmonaut dropping a piece of metal on the floor. He says, oops, in Russian, and then you hear it clanging around. How do you explain that?
opgevangen en
oh, must be, maybe he found a pocket of microgravity. How do you explain this? I mean, it's convenient that the restroom facility has gravity, I suppose, but it's a continuity error. Observing reality, he instinctively looked down. Water walking GJ Jesus ZZ says, big video games coming in the future: UFC 6, Grand Theft Auto 6, Call of Duty 6. The 666, they want everyone in the video games. Yeah, absolutely. You look at the GameCube, it's all Saturn worship. And when I say Saturn worship, I mean matter. I mean the material world, the material over the spirit, or the simulation over the real thing. Like, we can look at the Saturn symbolism, the cubes, and the esoteric aspects of it all. But on another level, there's a practical level where we can say, well, what this really likely represents is our subjection to, our submission to, the mind control. The black box represents the simulation, the video game, in which you're just a player. And if you're in the game, you're in their box, you're in their worldview, and you're constrained by its parameters, their controls. And a literalist said, Red's people will have great answers. Yeah, Red's rhetoric will say it was microgravity. Well, they'll say he somehow pushed it down. They'll make stuff up. They lie on the fly. They're pretty good at it. And I don't really care what space, what do you call them? These NASAtologists. I don't really care what they believe in because I categorize these as beliefs. Like you're a believer. A lot of people have religious beliefs, and you have a space religion, but I don't accept that as knowledge. They've accepted it on faith, and they will lie to defend their faith, but they don't know what they're talking about. But more importantly, if they believe all that stuff, the fake stuff above, it's a guarantee they believe all the fake stuff below. So what you're dealing with somebody like Red's Rhetoric or McToon or Fight the Flat Earth are people whose head is in the box. They're in the game. I think it was Fight the Flat Earth. He invited me to a debate. And I explained to him that there's no reason for us to have a conversation because my argument isn't that the earth is flat. Like, I'm not even an earther in that sense. You couldn't even categorize me in this round versus flat debate. I'm here to talk about worldview, and it's more about psychoepistemology. And as a believer in everything that he sees on the screen, I would contend that he has accepted an argument, an appeal to authority. And as such, he cannot have an honest debate with me. That he's an automatic believer in everything on the news. He doesn't recognize the existence of propaganda. Or his interpretation of propaganda is skewed. Because a lot of people don't recognize it. For example, entertainment. The entertainment on Netflix is propaganda first. It's entraining you to future fake news, which becomes your fake history. If you're entertained or amused by it, that's a side effect. That's just something sweet they put in the poison. But, there's some aesthetics, there's some redeeming value to it, I'm sure. But its primary purpose is inundating you with a worldview. It's all about conforming you to their box. And so the space ball defenders, the NASA defenders, are just on they're true believers. They're in no position to argue with skeptics. Marcel says his name is Andre Coopers, Astronauti. Okay. Yeah, well, he screwed up. He dropped a screw, and they let that get out. And that's not the only time. We have many examples of this, but there's nothing that will stop a true believer from explaining away what their eyes see. They'll come up with an explanation. They've pretty well explained away the glass of water in the Japanese space station, and they said that's how it is in space. You can sit there with a glass of water and it's not going to float out of your cup. Meanwhile, your hair is going in every direction. Continuity errors are a good way to find out or to notice where this thing is falling apart. Okay, let me point this out. This is a response to my video or my blog post where I suggested that weather weapons are fake and geoengineering is a hoax and depopulation is a hoax. Lloyd Miller said, Tim, you're getting further and further off the mark to the point where you're supporting the establishment. This is just like what Lynn Ertel said. Lynn and Lloyd have tried to keep me in line for years now. And that's great. I like the debate. You say I go too far. Tell me I'm not taking these threats seriously enough. Tell me I'm not triggered enough. Well, I'm not an activist. I'm not a truther. I'm not an anti, and I'm not programmed. Trutherism is within the programming. It's in that universe. It's not outside of it. But he says, I'm supporting the reality scripting. He says, do you really think the International Treaty Against Weather Intervention was passed because no such technology exists? There's plenty of evidence that hurricane control has been experimented with. Do we know? No. But investigation based on justified suspicions are in order. So again, the distinction, do we know? No, we don't. So he says we need to consider it then because we don't know. I say we need to reject the claim because it's not something that we can test. There's no reality testing for it. It's just rumor. I say subtract it from your worldview. Subtract weather control and climate change until you can demonstrate these things to exist. If we spend our life worrying about hypotheticals, we become superstitious, hyperstitious. Let me play this clip. This is there's one perspective. I'm not taking weather weapons seriously enough. Now here's a climate scientist watching the graphic depicting Hurricane Milton, which looks like a skull, a burning skull. I'm sure that's what it literally looks like. They're not just exaggerating. And he breaks down and he cries. This guy's crying for Gaia. Take a listen.
It has dropped. It has dropped 50 millibars in 10 hours. I apologize.
He's crying.
It's just horrific. Maximum sustained winds are 160 miles per hour.
Now, the reason why he's crying is the same reason why Leonardo DiCaprio's character in Don't Look Up had anxiety and had to take pills. It's because the scientists know that this is preventable and that we are causing this and that this is a man-caused tragedy.
And other areas there. Let's see if I can show you.
But he's crying about it. So sad. But anyway, I'm just pointing out that if you're crying wolf about weather weapons, you're basically crying. From my perspective, you're emoting. You're having an emotional response. And it's not a point of reason. It's a point of conjecture and suspicion. And that's not enough. N.A. Literalist said, Fight the Flat Earth said that 5G is good for your health. 5G health extension, says David Hazel. Oh, yeah, you take 5G with your life extension Big Macs, and yeah, you're good to go. I would not be surprised if 5G was good for your health. They have every interest in keeping you alive. Nobody's trying to depopulate anybody. That's such a hoax. Depopulation. There's another one. Both sides agree we're having a population crisis. If you lean right wing, you say we're running out of people. If you're left wing, you say there's too many people. But if you're right wing and you're worried about depopulation, you still don't want immigrants, even though you're having people replacing people that you think are missing. You would think if you're afraid of depopulation, you'd be like, yeah, everybody's welcome. Infinite Plane Radio.
Just to piss off your viewers, I'm coming back on for a minute.
Hey.
And just real quick.
Sure.
To those viewers who don't like me, go to hell, you idiot. Anyway, let me just tell you something. You know I don't agree with a lot of the things you say. You know that, right, Tim?
Yeah, 99% of the population doesn't. And
okay.
so I accept that as a face, but we're not here for that at this point. We're here for
right. That's why I ignore the things that I don't agree with you on. But I just want to know one thing on the one. Let me just ask you this one thing. You were mentioning who were the ones that believe the weather manipulated? Who were those people that you were mentioning that believe it?
Oh, the people who believe in, like, as far as the weather manipulation crowd.
Yeah, who are they that you were mentioning?
I was mentioning people like MTG, Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Right, now, but let me ask you this. You believe that the Earth is not a spinning ball, right?
Right. I totally reject that. I reject.
Okay, but they always have trolls, saying that the Earth is not a ball. So you get what I'm saying? So why would you think that they would not have trolls say that the weather's not manipulated? And let me just tell you this. I was not believing in the weather manipulation like some years ago, but I'm not saying that I'm 100%. I just know that there's something going on, but I don't know what it is. So that's why I'm not one way or the other on it. But what I'm trying to tell you is, how do you not know that they're going to use trolls to make people think that, oh, that it doesn't exist? Yeah, that's all I'm saying.
Right, to discredit. Yeah, well, it's kind of interesting, though, because if you say climate change doesn't exist, lefties, environmentalists will say, oh, you're a troll planted by big oil. So at this point, until I see direct evidence of godlike powers by the elite, I have to reject it on principle. And I'm sticking with that until I see it. Because what I do see is they have the propensity to do psyops even with the weather, with actors and lies. And so I'm just defaulting to the safer position of I'll believe it when I see it. And if they have it and use it, I wouldn't be shocked. Like nothing would shock me at this point.
Right, and let me tell you why I believe that they are using, why I think they would use it on the people in our own country, because that all these preppers, there a lot of them are running to the woods and stuff. You know that, right?
Yeah, that's
like yeah.
Okay.
Hello?
Yeah. So I think something too, though. If they had it, I almost feel like they would have used it by now. If it was like a secret weapon they did have and they implemented it, it would have significant ramifications.
Yeah, but that's what they're doing. That's what I'm trying to tell you. With the preppers, all these preppers are prepping. They're going to the woods and like as if they're going to hide out, as if the government's not going to come and get them in the woods. They're gonna burn them out. They're going to, if they don't burn them out, they're going to smoke them out. And if they really do have weather manipulation possibilities, which like I said, I do consider it now, but they would flood them out, just like they did with this North Carolina thing. You know what I'm trying to give you an example of how these preppers think they're going to get away from the government, and there's nowhere to hide. Actually, the people who live in the city have a better chance of being amongst the people, because they're going to go after the people in the city last. They're going to go after the people who are hiding in the woods.
Yeah, you're right about it. You're right about it, because the way that they've split everything up here, like rural versus urban, big government is associated with big cities and total compliance, whereas the people outside are being designated as the enemy. And they've created this. You would think being a prepper, being independent, is a good thing, and they've made that synonymous with terrorism. They did like threat assessment reports from the DHS more than 10 years ago where they were classifying preppers as somehow threats. So this is a long game, a long psyop. This has been going on for a long time, but this narrative of preppers being dangerous and threats that are enemies of the state, yeah, that's set.
Yeah, anyway, just to let people know that, like I said, there's a bunch of things me and you don't agree with. That's why I try to stick only to the things that we agree with. Anyway, bro, take care.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, thanks for the call. And yeah, we have a lot of opinionated people in the chat, and I appreciate that. And people have different conclusions. I certainly don't share all the same conclusions. I do not have any kind of a religious framework, but I'm interested in the interesting times that we're in. And there are some people who have some insight. And when those insights are valid and they add to the general picture, it really does add to our conversation here when we have callers like this. I'm just opening the platform. So, for example, he had brought up something the other day. We were talking about Adam Driver, the guy from Megalopolis, how he looks like Neo, and how he's also the face of White Noise. And White Noise basically it takes place in Ohio, but the real life event that followed it was in East Palestine. So you look at East Palestine, 42 miles from Butler, and you have the head wound connection now with this 9/11ing event that we've been describing, this nuke event. Well, Megalopolis has both these things. It has the head wound, has the 9/11ing of New York, but the same actor in both roles that would correspond to Trump in each of these events. So anyway, it's multifaceted, very layered, very intricate, but it's also coherent. This is a history book. We're living in a history book. That's when I say metascript, I mean all of the fake news that becomes our history and all of the predictive programming and all of the narratives, which feed into a monolithic, singular version of things. That's where we get our model from. I'm not here to debate the globe model. I'm here to debate the worldview model. And most people don't know it's merely a model because they live in it. And the people who live in it are in the simulation. There's a link in the chat if you want to follow Jurassic Liars and his last video. Dirk says it's okay to disagree. Oh, I invite disagreement. If I wasn't debating with chemtrail believers, I wouldn't have figured out why I don't believe in it. I was not really a big believer in it anyway for some basic reasons, like why would they poison their own? Or it's too obvious. There's no way that the airline industry is complicit in chemical warfare. And so I'm like looking at this whole thing objectively. But I didn't take it seriously until I started suggesting it was fake. And then some people would say, you just don't look up. What are those lines? What are they spraying? And it bothered me because I couldn't figure out how they were winning in these debates, how they were gaining an edge just by asking, just by saying simple things like, or rather asserting unverifiables, but just by asking seemingly simple questions. What are they spraying? Like that question should be swatted down. Like you tell me. You don't get to appeal to ignorance as a way of advancing an agenda or a conclusion you already have. But the question was very tricky, and I realized this is a loaded question fallacy. And then I had people say, well, why wouldn't they do it? They're so bad. They're so evil. Why wouldn't they do it? I don't have a reason why. So should I therefore say the bad guys are so bad, of course they're going to do this? Well, no, that's called appeal to motive fallacy. So the more I went through it, the more I realized you cannot be a chemtrail activist without 5 or 6 logical fallacies backing up your arguments. If you need 5 or 6 logical fallacies to back your arguments, you're dishonest and you're lying. So then I would continue with these debates to find out, could I get someone to provide a compelling argument for the existence of chemtrails without any trickery? And none of them can. None of them have. And it disappeared as a topic. Awesome. Jurassic Liars is going live in 13 minutes, and I'm heading out of here in about 12. So hit that link if you want to take a listen. And again, he did predict, and this is like how we do. You know, I mean, this is what we do as a think tank, and he's part of this think tank. We are looking for, or we're finding consistent matching patterns. That's what's so remarkable about this. The very fact that Trump was not only shot at 6/11, but they made that the official time. And they used that 84 days later, 6/11 to the minute, for the moment of silence. Like, this is precise. This is precision. These are precise alignments. These are specifically chosen codes. So anybody who can crack these codes, which is cracking the screen. You know, you want to break that screen, get people to exit the box. They're inside of the TV. They're trapped in the movie. Yeah, you want to break that screen, you have to crack the codes. You have to decipher things. And what we have exposed here, and what we continually expose, is that the public lives in a mass deception. The billions who are programmed live in a worldview construct. They live in a simulation. It is accurate and truthful. It is a factual statement to say they live in a simulation. If you believe that the world's going to end because of nukes, climate change, aliens, their World War III scenarios, if they have all these elements added to your existence that you don't directly experience, but you believe them, you're in their simulation. You have 1 foot in the real world, 1 foot in the dream world, and they merge these things. And this is why I mentioned this connection between the Joker Batman universe and all these various contemporary psyops. It's because it's a clear example of how they're merging the two. And they even said that there was a collision of real and fake when people driving by the filming of Joker 2 outside the courthouse thought the mob was there for Trump. They had a movie mob there for Joker outside the courthouse when Trump was inside being arrested on 4/4. Like, this is just one of thousands of examples we could point to of this intentional conflation of real and fake. Now, let me point out one other thing. This is a post by Biff Don. He's looking at Elon Musk. And this is a good example, I think, of the MSM plus worldview, where they don't subtract, they add. They add to explain away the things that don't make sense. They don't subtract. So in his view, in Biff Don's view, quote, Elon Musk is either from the future, another timeline, a futuristic past, or is some sort of alien, non-human, or at least part AI. His tech just keeps showing up. So he can't explain the genius of Musk. Therefore, Musk is an alien, a demigod, something from the future, or a supercomputer. That's the MSM plus view. The mainstream media view is, yeah, he's a rich guy who bought himself a lot of cool toys. The MSM plus conspiracy view, he's a god. My view, the MSM plus view, is the fact that Musk is part of the fake space psyop indicates he's a construct. Elon Musk is no realer than Forrest Gump. It's a role. Yep, Elon Musk is basically Forrest Gump. Yeah, Tom Hanks exists. Forrest Gump exists. Tom Hanks exists in the real world. Forrest Gump is a movie person, a construct. Elon Musk is a physical being who exists in the world, but the person that we see portrayed through mass media, who has all these various achievements attributed to him, like sending mice to the space station, yeah, that's all construct. Faking history. My third eye says, they say the bees are dying off and it'll kill us all. Yeah, they've been saying the bees are dying off for like 20 years. InfoWars, they said that decades ago. There's no more bees. And they also said, I think Jones used to say that the airplanes were dumping aluminum to kill the soil, so we can't grow plants, and the only plants we can have, the only food we can have are grown by, I think it was Frankenfoods or Monsanto. So they used to do a lot of food phobia and talk about how we're going to run out of food and you have to get seeds and put them in a vault because the seed, it was just all kinds of fear. I mean, they've been selling all kinds of scary ideas and mind viruses for decades. Like the whole paranoid conspiracy theorist tinfoil hat thing, it's not a stereotype. It's what they become. My third eye says Musk is another fictional character created in the Elon von Braun book. Yeah, Elon Musk is a construct. He's a composite creature. I would say he's a combination of Werner von Braun and the Elon in Mars: A Technical Tale, Tony Stark Iron Man, Willy Wonka, part Jack Parsons, and I think we could also add in there Constantine, which is where we get Pope Elon. But he's a combination of all these various characters. And he's just one of many, these world stage characters. So getting back to what we said earlier about Diddy, how do we know any of that's real? Like, it's believable, sure, but is it real? Hey, check this out. This is an old clip that I mentioned earlier that there's a lot of people digging back into the Jones-Hicks thing. Here's an old video of Bill Hicks out on the steps of the Capitol ranting about the government, and it sounds or looks kind of like Alex Jones on January 6th.
Hello, I'm Bill Hicks, and I'm standing at the foot of one of the halls of justice in our great country. You know, when the producers of this video asked me to discuss my opinions on the George Bush administration, I was struck by the very cynical thought, what is the fucking point?
Anyway, it's called the Alex Jones is Bill Hicks megathread. If you have a few minutes to go through the Alex Jones is Bill Hicks megathread, you'll find quite a lot here, substantive leads suggesting that somebody's lying about their age and their origin, and somebody's really just a character who was created in advance, and he's playing out that role. And there's quite a lot we could add to this. Their obsession with Waco, both of them had the Waco connection, and Waco is where Alex Jones got radicalized. Waco, 419, Dave Koresh, 1.6 million rounds. That's where Trump kicked off his campaign. He kicked it off in Waco, right after Netflix released Waco, American Apocalypse. So you have the Waco connection to Trump, Waco with Alex Jones. They're both there. On the anniversary of Waco, Maxwell Azarello sets himself on fire outside of the courthouse, like Dave Koresh. Timothy McVeigh was also activated at Waco, and he was executed on 6/11. 6/11 is kind of code for domestic violent extremists on the right wing, which is why Trump was shot at 6/11. Why Tim Ballard's movie is all about the 6/11. Again, this is just code. 6/11 is a very important code here. I'm not going to go through the Bill Hicks, Alex Jones stuff. I mean, this is old news to us here, but it's compelling. If you haven't seen the Alex Jones is Bill Hicks mega thread, I highly recommend it. I'll put a link if anybody wants to look through it. Yeah, I've watched Megalopolis. I watched it in the theater. I took copious notes, and I walked away from it feeling like they put Metascript above coherence. I'm not saying it's a bad movie. It's audacious, but I'm saying that there's so much in there that is, I think, it's so layered that you might have to watch it more than once. It almost felt like watching a Kubrick. I felt like I was studying for a film criticism test. It didn't feel like I was watching an enjoyable movie. And one thing I would 100% recommend that you do on this is, if you watch Megalopolis, is compare his looks to that of Neo from The Matrix. And note how every time he's hanging out with his driver, who's played by Lawrence Fishburne, they use the green light and it's raining. So they totally invoke The Matrix. And then you have to look at the connections between Neo and 9/11. And it all ties together quite succinctly. Matrix, Dark City, 9/11, all encoded into Megalopolis, which is Megalon. Megalopolis is Mogalon, Mogalopolis. Make Rome great again. But again, I think they put scripting over coherence. And so it's definitely worth watching from a Metascript perspective. It's not something to go out if you're trying to have a date night or something. I mean, I'm not saying it's unwatchable or it's terrible, but I don't know. I watched it with a notebook in hand. I don't know if I would have watched it otherwise. This is Pope Elon.
I mean, we're all going to die someday. And if you're going to pick some place to die...
I'm heading over to watch Jurassic Liars. I'll put a link below, and also subscribe to the newsletter.
Die on Mars. Seems like maybe it'd be kind of exciting. But so I think, given the choice of dying on Earth or dying on Mars, I'd say, yeah, sure, I'll die on Mars.
and you can tell it's real because it looks so fake.